Hey, all right. We're here with Troy Matthews from Keep Troy Blue, who I've known from TikTok. How you doing today, my man?
I'm doing good, man. How are you? It's good to see you.
Doing great, doing
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So today's Memorial Day, and I forgot all about that. I forgot. Well, I mean, I knew it, today. I didn't drive into work or anything, but I forgot about it on the weekend or whatever. And um, this is the unofficial start of summer and everything, Memorial Day weekend. And it is weird that summer doesn't start until late June because we
Yeah.
don't think of it. We think of it way before that. Like the Earth says it's summer then, but we say it's summer a whole month earlier. And it's June's coming up on us, and we're already preparing for all of the posts, and we got a whole month dedicated to the gay folk, but I don't hear any. Where's the month dedicated to the troops? Like, we got two of them. We have two of them.
Yeah.
We have May and November. I don't know. It's just pretty funny. I don't know. So yeah, just prepping myself for that. But yeah, just wanted to bring you on and just ask a few questions here. I love. I don't know about you, but I love getting to talk to other content creators. It's just it's the second best part of the gig. The best part is all the validation to fill the hole in my my heart and my soul I have for all the demagogue in me gets fed and everything. So I'm sure you guys know how it is. But I always start these off asking about your background a little bit, like where you grew up and what your influences were in life. So how did that go for you?
Oh Jesus. Well, I grew up in the Bay Area. I'm from California, San Francisco Bay Area. I lived in LA for 10 years. Got my master's degree from George Washington University online while I was teaching the George Washington University, actually, I guess. And then just kind of got into. I was really inspired by the election of Barack Obama in 2008. And I got really into politics at that point, and got my master's degree in political science and started working for a few candidates. And then kind of got into the nonprofit world. And then, like COVID happened in 2020. I don't know if you started on TikTok in 2020. I feel like a lot of people did, kind of with the pandemic, not being able to go out, not being able to do much. So I got started on TikTok in 2020. And yeah, it's just kind of been a wild ride since then. So yeah, it's been crazy. Yeah.
So wrote down a few things here. You grew up in San Francisco or in the Bay Area, you said.
Yeah.
And I've only been to California once.
Where are you
I was born in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And my dad was in the Army. We moved around a whole bunch, and in Europe, and then back in the States, and graduated from high school in Missouri and everything. So, but my sister, she's an audiologist out in San Diego.
Okay.
And so I went up there for her wedding. No, I've been there twice. I went there last year, so it's gorgeous. Like, San Diego is the most beautiful place I've ever been. And brother, I've been everywhere. It is gorgeous. And
San Diego's pretty nice.
Oh my God, it's nice. I was talking to my brother-in-law, and it was like 75 degrees and had a nice breeze. And I was like, man, this is a great time of the year. I said, how often is it like this? He goes, every day. So
Yeah.
I said, every day. And so, but I knew I had a Twitter friend, like a guy that I only knew from Twitter. And we met on Twitter, like 15 years ago or something. And we always kept in contact. I knew he was from San Francisco. And so I got out there. I was like, oh my God. I was like, hey, I'm in San Diego. How far is that from San Diego? Yeah, it's like 4.5 hours. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, never mind. That's a whole state away, basically. He's like, yeah, it's like nowhere near. But
that's a problem. Yeah, that's the problem with California is like it's
too
state.
long. Yeah, it's too long of a state. We need to even it out a little bit. Like, I was reading about it too, and like Northern California is like, of course, it's wildly different in the climate and everything than Southern California, which is basically Mexico and everything. But getting involved in politics, or active in politics and stuff. So 2008 is when Obama was elected. For those of you who weren't aware, that a guy named Barack Obama was elected to the. Say what?
For the kids,
for the kids that weren't around. That was 2008, and that galvanized a lot of people in politics and everything. I grew up conservative, and so I was still kind of like a light conservative in 2008. By 2010, 2011, I had kind of drifted away and everything like that. But I do remember.
I knew that about you from your content. Yeah.
Yeah, I talk about it a lot. It's nothing I'm proud of, but I guess I'm proud of getting away from it. But my whole family kind of has over the years. I didn't start on social media until 2022. I was still in the Army in 2020, and I got out the next year. And then 2022, like May or April, May of 2022 is when I got started into it, and yeah, it's been pretty fun. I can't really look back. So I'm curious about this. So Obama's election changed politics a lot. Yeah, and one thing that I say all the time is that I hate to admit it, but the country wasn't ready for a black president. Yeah, apparently not. I think we all thought we were. We're like, oh, look at this auspicious moment, but holy shit, look what happened after Obama's election. It has fried the brains of so many people. And go for it. Yeah, go ahead. So how have you seen politics change in the last, Jesus Christ, 14 years since Obama's election? Yeah, I know, hard to say, but
it's been a hectic 14 years. It's been a hectic 20 years. Yeah, you said it. I mean, we thought things would change. I thought, when Barack got elected, I thought we'd really turn the corner in this country. And I thought that not that racism was over. That's
right.
Stupid. But I thought that maybe, the good guys were going to win and we were going to move on from all that shit. And we were going to get a lot of good things done. And we did in a lot of ways. But you're right. It just the backlash to Obama's presidency was so intense. And we're living in that right now. I mean, people have still not recovered, I think, from having a black president. And you could not have picked a better guy to be the first black president or any president.
I know, right? I know.
Like Barack was I'm just assuming we're talking to people, like maybe people who don't know, but like Barack was scandal free, great family. I mean, just incredible story, just everything about that guy. Cool guy, funny, charismatic. Everything about that guy was just top notch for the presidency, and people fucking hated him because he was black. I guess there was nothing like radical about his policies at all. He was a moderate.
So, that's the thing that really got me during Obama's presidency is that I would hear people all the time talk about how radical left this guy was. It's like, really? I say he's pretty standard for any Democrat you would find. I mean, it's like there are definitely more radical Democrats than Barack Obama. Yeah. What's the radical part exactly that you're talking? And then just saying insane stuff. I remember having a conversation with a woman at a flea market in Missouri when I was helping my dad does the flea market stuff. And yeah, the flea market is not where you want to go for progressive ideas, in central Missouri. Got to tell you, it's amazing we made it out alive a lot of those times. But this lady was saying that, I just it really worries me that this guy's a Muslim. And I was like, no, I mean, has he ever stepped foot in a mosque? I don't know. Like, he's been a Christian his entire life. What are you talking about? But I mean, the name threw them off, and that was it. That was it. They're like, oh my God, this guy's a radical Muslim. And then when it came to his policies, pretty standard Democrat stuff. In fact, what really gets me about Obama, I have a whole lot of complaints about Obama, is that I found he was too acquiescent to Republicans. And look where it got him. Look where it got him. They still rebelled anyway.
I think he, and if you read his biography about his time as president, there was he is a pretty left-wing guy, and just in his own thinking,
right, personally.
But he moderated himself so that he could meet Republicans in the middle, and he was trying to compromise, and they shit all over him. I'm sorry, I don't know if we can swear, but
no, you can't, Brian.
They totally it was brutal, and it's really set the stage for the politics that we live in now. Where I mean, a lot of the stuff, a lot of this disinformation, like the Arab thing, the Muslim thing, that was really the beginning of like the Trump disinformation, alternative facts that we're living in now. It really began with the Republicans' reaction to Barack Obama, just making shit up about him that wasn't true.
The first one that I remember that went until probably 2015 that this kept going was the fact that Barack Obama wasn't born, or the assertion that Barack Obama wasn't born in the United States. And before the election even took place, he released his birth certificate. Like he
Yeah.
gave it to the news people. And it was then that I found out there are two types of birth certificates. There's a birth certificate and a long form. I have never heard of a long form birth certificate. And then I was in recruiting for the Army for a while. Even the military doesn't ask for a long, because the normal one's fine. It works everywhere, but wasn't good enough for Republicans. Some fucking bean counter was like, oh, there's actually a second birth certificate. We need to ask Obama if he has it. It's like, people, you just don't give a shit. Like, you just want to spread this rumor. And that's actually the weird thing is when people talk about, oh, well, Trump, they claim Trump. Well, name one racist thing Trump did. Like, I don't know, maybe spreading the birther thing for like 8 years. He was the primary guy pushing that shit and stuck with it. Even when I remember watching Bill O'Reilly, of all people. I was watching Bill O'Reilly. It was like 2008, 2009. And he was talking about birtherism. And he said, yeah, so a lot of people think Obama wasn't born in Hawaii, but here's a newspaper article from 1961 listing the births at this hospital, and his name is on there. Yeah. So unless you're arguing Obama is some sort of time traveler, I'm pretty sure he was born in Hawaii in the 1960s. And I was like, okay, folks, if Bill fucking O'Reilly says this is nonsense, I think you can get, nope, they still did it. They did it for the better part of 10 years. And it just showed, oh, go ahead.
No. I just think it's just hilarious, man.
They just kept rolling with this shit. It didn't matter if it was true or not, because it felt good to say it. It just felt good they couldn't say the N-word. And so they had to find other ways around the shit. And my God. Oh, go ahead.
There's still stuff circulating him around. There's a lot of conspiracies now that he's like pulling, he's behind the scenes controlling Joe Biden. There's still the Muslim stuff. There's still the, he wasn't born in this country stuff. It's crazy. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
I don't get that conspiracy theory that Obama is pulling the strings on Biden. Like, what does that matter? Like, let's say that's true. Let's say it's true. How does it? You think if Biden was running the show, it'd be any different? Like, you think what is like? Would you prefer Biden to be running? I don't know. Like I love a conspiracy theory that doesn't make any sense. I love it. Like even on its own premise, it just falls apart. And I'll get to that one too. Mask. I like that. That's another one. Like the mask is one that makes no sense at all. But you mentioned how Obama was like, for a politician, like relatively free of like actual controversial shit. And one thing I would always say is, could you imagine if Barack Hussein Obama had 5 kids by 3 different women like Donald Trump? Yeah. How would that have gone down for the 8 years of his presidency? Like, conservatives would have just nonstop been saying shit like, this is a poor example for black children, this, and the breakdown of the black family, that, like, they would have never shut up about it. And Trump, like, oh, well, we're hiring a president, not a preacher. It's like, it's so obnoxious how they're doing that shit. And I had Supreme Court written down here. I'm not sure why I wrote the Supreme Court down. I don't know if you mentioned something about that, but oh, well, doesn't matter. So I guess it kind of dovetails into what I want to talk about here is the rift between, it's not even a rift between Republicans and Democrats it's like just sanity and insanity. And the insanity is really taking hold. And COVID didn't help with that either. That, because you mentioned a lot of people got into making content during COVID. A lot of people got into conspiracies. And it's not done us any favors. Because I don't know if you've noticed this. One thing that I've seen is that whenever you're talking to people about conspiracy, like I mentioned, like conspiracy that don't make sense always crack me up. Masks are a good one, because they're like, well, they're just making us wear these masks as a test to see how acquiescent you are. I was like, my brother in Christ, the government knows your name. It knows where you were born. It knows where you live, knows where you work, knows what you drive. It knows who you're fucking. I mean, it knows everything about you. And you still pay your taxes every year like a good little citizen, don't you? Like they have all the control of your life they could possibly want. What could they ever learn by who wears a mask and who doesn't? But I don't know. They don't think about it anymore. It's just they love conjuring up nonsense for no reason.
you're not that important is the thing. Like that, like they're not. They have no reason to track you. With all the shit that's going on in the world, the government is not going to go out of their way to track, some dude in the South, whatever. Like, and that goes back to the Obama conspiracy thing too. Like the weird thing about the Obama conspiracies, they have this worldview where it's like nothing is just by chance, right? Like,
Yeah.
this very like fatalistic worldview. Like they didn't know in the '60s when Barack Obama was born that he was one day be president. Like to
Or
assume
did they?
that, like, you have to say that like that Honolulu newspaper was in on some conspiracy
Yes.
to like put his name in the thing because they knew that that 60 years later or whatever he would be president. It just it's silly. It's really silly.
There's
the mass thing is not like you're not that important. They don't care that much about you.
And it wouldn't teach them anything at all. And like even the COVID thing. So like there was this is where it gets, because like COVID was weird. No big statement there. But no one knew what was going on for a long time. Like nobody. Like we didn't know. The government didn't know. Scientists didn't know. We were just shooting in the dark. So they were playing it safe, like you should. Like that's what everyone in the world did because it made sense. But the fact that there was uncertainty there, people don't like people don't like when they don't have answers. They don't like it. And so then whenever people say, okay, this happened, okay, we're correcting it. Oh my God, they lied to us. It's like, well, they didn't know, man. They're just trying their best to figure this out. And sometimes it did. I don't know about you, people may disagree with this, but whenever people would talk about the origin of COVID, and like when we first heard that it came from a wet market, with the bats and everything like that. And then people would say, well, actually, no, it was a virus that leaked from the lab. Now, I got to tell you, when I found out that there was a virology lab, was like, okay, that's not an insane theory right there. That is not crazy. Now, it breaks down into like two areas because I was like, okay, if it came to truth that, it actually leaked from the lab, I wouldn't be shocked to hear that. I don't for a second believe that the Chinese government released this virus on purpose on their own people to have it circumnavigate the globe. That's where it falls apart and doesn't make any sense. But people seem to have this is where like QAnon kind of rose out, is that they kind of get this idea that just because some conspiracy theories are true, like the Gulf of Tonkin or MK Ultra. So like those conspiracy theories are true. That means all conspiracy theories are true. That's kind of right. Like that's kind of what they go down. Like they go down this wild hole where there's no reality whatsoever. And I don't know how to deal with these people. I just don't.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I was actually planning on doing some content on it. Actually, you kind of like read my mind. Like the government did some really, really messed up shit. The United States government in the history of our country in the '60s, a lot of this stuff was real. That doesn't mean like MK Ultra was real. That doesn't mean that we didn't go to the moon or the Earth is flat, or that doesn't mean that like this QAnon, like the Democrats are part of this global elite cabal that wants to like drink the blood of children. Like you don't have to make that leap. You can question things. And we talk about this on my podcast all the time. The really frustrating thing is that they jump right to these like asinine conspiracy theories when really the problem is much more rooted in reality. Like, they have all these conspiracies about 9/11 and how, Bush caused 9/11. But the real problem, the real issue with 9/11 goes back to Reagan and how we funded the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. Like that shit was real. That actually happened. Like what Reagan did in Afghanistan with the Mujahideen and what George H.W. Bush did. Like you could look at that and say like that was the cause of 9/11, sure. But then to go all the way and just talk about these conspiracy theories, like, I don't know. It's just a waste. It's a waste of energy. There are real problems that we could fix if we actually focused on the problem, but people love to just talk about the insane conspiracy theories type stuff,
Well, my man, that's not as fun. Saying that, we funded the Mujahideen to fight the Soviets and everything is true, and like how that led to the creation of the Taliban that destabilized Afghanistan, that allowed terror cells to train in this backward mountainous region, and they eventually concocted a shockingly simple and effective plan. Like, I mean, it's amazing. I don't know, I'll get it later, but a shockingly simple and effective plan to take down the Twin Towers and the Pentagon and everything. But that's not nearly as fun as a bunch of guys, in construction at planting bombs in like two of the tallest buildings on the planet and no one catching it. Yeah, that's a lot more fun. That's to deal with. But the MK Ultra one, that is a great conspiracy theory to go to, because so for those who don't know, MK Ultra was a CIA experiment in which they used, I believe, LSD to try to mind control people, because of course they would. And the unfortunately it didn't work. But what I always like to say is that, I mean, if it did work, we'd never know. We would never. I mean, it could have actually been successful, and we're just living through this through the control of the government the entire time. But yeah, the government does fucked up shit all the time. But most conspiracy theories aren't that cool. Most of them are not as cool as the MK Ultra one. They're, like you said, we funded sorry, my cat is crazy. We funded all these operations that always come back to bite us in the ass, a recurring theme that happens in politics. And we just reached this weird time where the Democratic Party is not as strong as it should be. Like, after all this, that's right. I mean, you mentioned Obama and how we all kind of thought that things would continue to get better. Like we wanted at least a public option or something. We got Obamacare. It's like, okay, we can build on that. But Trump's election threw everything into a blender, and it not only stalled all the progress we thought we were making, slow as it was, but it energized this really rabid base of exuberant fascists. And Trump did more psychological damage to the country, I think, than political damage. Like, what do you think?
Yeah. Oh, it's just been so bad. I feel like at some point we veered off into another timeline, and we're just.
It does feel like that, yeah.
Dumbass timeline. Because for those of us who grew up in the 90s, Trump's a joke. Trump was a joke. Like, he was never like this. He was not a cool guy. Like, no one thought Trump was a cool guy. He was a rich guy from New York.
Thought he was rich, yeah.
He was just kind of a clown. But for him to be president of the United States and to have this cult-like following the way he does is just highly disturbing. And yeah, it's an absolute sort of brain cancer on the society of the United States. And I really do think it's a backlash. But you know what's interesting is it's not just limited to this country. I mean, we could sit here and say that it's a reaction to Barack Obama, and it is in a lot of ways. But there's a lot of this going on in Europe right now. You talked about being from Europe. I mean, there's a fascist movement that just took control in Italy. There's the fascists in Hungary. There's a fascist movement in Spain that's growing. So, I mean,
Argentina's got
Argentina. So there is this sort of right-wing movement happening all over the world that, I do think Trump kicked it into gear, gave those people permission to be fascist, to be racist. He made that fashionable again. But yeah, we're living in very strange times. But yeah, I like the way you said that. We were on the verge of we didn't get everything we wanted with Barack Obama, not even close. But we were on the verge of doing great things, and people got frustrated that the process was taking too long, and Trump came in, and we're not even thinking about like universal health care right now. We're not even the stuff that we were thinking about 10 years ago. Right now, we're just trying to survive. Like right now, we're just trying to keep our democracy alive. So
yeah, that is the worst part of it. That the worst part actually is that no one saw it coming. November 2016. I remember this. I wasn't super excited about Hillary Clinton, but I remember thinking, okay, look, Hillary Clinton may not have been, the person I would have picked or anything, but there's just no way she's going to lose. Like, people aren't actually going to get out of bed in the morning, dry or leave work and go vote for Donald Trump. they did.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot of people, but it was just enough to actually get him through. And that really, it sent me down this weird spiral where I think Trump, like I was saying, we were talking about how Trump, the psychic damage he did more than the like legislative damage he did, which was pretty bad too, is that it convinced me that there were more Trump supporters than there actually were.
Yeah.
And also with how I love that they call themselves the silent majority, because like if there's anything these folks are not, it's silent. They cannot shut the fuck up about how much they love Donald Trump. And
or the majority. They're not the majority in any strip.
All right, they're the majority. Yes. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. They're the loudest fuck minority. That's what they are. Yeah. And they so I remember thinking that, oh man, it's like I remember talking to my dad, and my dad was saying that, I don't think Trump's going to win in 2020. And I said, well, why not? He says that, I can't remember what he said, but he said something like, just look at it. Something like, it was like, you can't be that kind of guy and have people come out and support you when it's over. And I was like, Dad, I don't know. I think he's going to win and everything. And he didn't. And I was like, oh. And then 2018, they lost a bunch of seats, which was to be expected. And they lost in 2020. And then 2022, they had the worst performance in like 100 years for an out-of-power party. Yeah. And that started to soothe me a bit. I was like, okay, all right, this isn't quite as bad as I thought. Is that these folks are just really proud of the fact that one of their guys somehow made it into the White House, and they make it seem like they're a larger sample of the population than they actually are. Do you get that opinion? Because that's kind of how I read it.
I think absolutely. I think there's about 30% of this population that would identify as a Trump supporter. Of that, you have maybe, half of that are the hardcore people. But it is definitely a very, very loud minority. And sometimes that's what we have to kind of keep telling ourselves is like the normal people
yes
are not what we see on TV, the Trump supporters on TV. Most people aren't doing that. Like, most of the polls are not correct. I don't know. We just have to keep we have to keep talking ourselves off the ledge, or I have to keep talking myself off the ledge. The polls this early on are not indicative of what's going to happen in November. Most people are not. Trump didn't win Trump lost the popular vote twice. He never cracked 50% popularity.
Not once during his presidency. Not once. People don't mention that.
The highest he got was at 48. I think it was at the beginning of COVID. But he's never had majority popularity. He's never won the popular vote. He's one of the most unpopular American figures in history. So yeah, I mean, it's a minority. It's a loud, very aggressive minority, getting more aggressive.
Yeah, and I bring that up all the time. Is that Trump is not nearly as strong a candidate as people are treating him. Like I don't want to act like famous last words and stuff, because I did a video a couple of days ago giving my prediction. I said I think Biden is going to win, and it's funny whenever I do this stuff and people will comment like, "Hey man, don't depress them." I was like, who do you think I am? You think people? Oh man, TJ said we're going to win. I guess I'm not going to vote now. I was like, that's not how this shit works. I'm just giving my prediction, man. But Trump is like you mentioned, the normies. Like the normies really don't like Trump. They really don't. And it's easy to like, no matter like let's say there's, I don't know, 30% of the population that are like us, that are really into politics, and on the right and the left. And we tend to, unfortunately, get into two different bubbles. We get into our bubble, like me and you, hey, we're lefties and this is what we talk about. And then the next bubble are the Trumpers. And those are like the only people we see. We see us and we see them. We're like, oh yeah, 70% of the population just doesn't get into this at all. Which is weird for me to even think about. Yeah. It's like, well, what the fuck do you care about? It's like they don't care at all. But amongst that population, there are way more people who are repulsed at the idea of Trump being president than Biden being president. Like that's why Biden's the president right now. It's not because they love Biden, but because they're like, no, man, I'm not vote for Donald Trump again. That's a complete non-starter for me. So I think it's good to remember that, and that Trump is just not as powerful of a figure, even to my surprise. Because one thing that I didn't catch, or I didn't expect, was in the primaries, is that Trump's polls, he's overperforming in the polls than he is in the primaries, which I didn't expect. And I sure as hell didn't expect Nikki Haley to consistently get 1/5 of the vote after she dropped out. And for a long time, I was thinking, okay, maybe the Democrats in these states are just fucking with them. And then Maryland happened, which is a closed primary, and she still got like 22% of the vote. That's I mean, that's so weird, because I would have guessed there's a portion of Republicans who really don't like Trump, but I'd guess that was like 8%, maybe 10. There's no way I thought it was 20. That still surprises me. Now, by November, I'm sure most of those people are still going to end up voting for Trump. But the fact that they went out of their way to vote against him consistently in every state does show that his support's not nearly as strong, even amongst Republicans, as even I would have guessed.
I think he has a major. I mean, you have the Lincoln Project people, you have the Never Trumper movement. You have 60% of Nikki Haley voters, when they were still polling her supporters, consistently said that they would never vote for Trump, like ever. They're not going to vote for Biden, but they just probably will just sit out the process. It's like around 60% of Haley voters, and she's still pulling. She just endorsed Trump the other day, which is fucking disappointing. I mean, I'm not expecting much out of Nikki Haley.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, all he had to do was, insult her and her husband for months, and then say he didn't want her support. That was all it took for her to back him. But so she backs him now. But yeah, I mean, she was pulling hundreds of thousands of votes in some of these states, not running. Like, just crazy. Yeah, it's a fractured coalition, to be sure. And they wanted, the media narrative is that Democrats are fractured. There is fracturing in the Democratic coalition too, but I don't think it's nearly as intense as it is on the Republican side. I think there's a lot of Republicans that do not want Donald Trump at the head of their party. So, and like I said, they're probably, most of those people are not going to vote for Biden. But I would imagine enough of them will just sit out and just won't vote.
So when you said that you think that the Republicans are more fractured than Democrats, I had to think about that for a while, because I guess it depends on how you mean. Because I think I more or less know that the Republican media, Republican politicians, Republican donors, Republican intelligentsia, to the extent that that exists at all, they are anti-Trump. They don't like him. Like, they've never liked him. Just check their quotes in 2015. Like, they all had the same shit talk to say about it. They were all right. Everything they said was true, and they didn't realize how popular he would be amongst their voting base. And so when he gained power, they've all had to suck up to him. But they spent all last year dumping money into Ron DeSantis. It was hilarious. Which is I make predictions a lot. One of my favorite calls was once everyone was talking about Ron DeSantis, but he ain't going nowhere. Right? Ron DeSantis. I said, mark my words, Ron DeSantis is flaming out. Now, I didn't predict he'd be gone as quick as he was. My prediction was that eventually Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump would have to be on a stage together for a debate, and Trump would comically eviscerate this guy. Like, he would hand him his ass on a silver platter like a dozen times that night. And I thought that's when it'll be over. Geez, he didn't get that far. Like, this weird, he didn't get that far. But they put a bunch, and then they all switched to Nikki Haley. But that grew, like, the actual power brokers in the Republican Party have done everything they can to stop Trump, but they're outnumbered by the people who actually vote. Yeah. So that's where I think the fracture is. I think your average Republican is still pretty pro-Trump.
Yeah, definitely. You call it the Republican intelligentsia.
Yeah,
it's the Republic. Yeah, and that's where the divide is. It's the money on one level, but it's also the political class of the Republican Party, the people who have been in it, since the 70s, since Reagan. It's the Reagan people. It's the people that have been doing this their whole lives that know that Trump is a fucking disaster. Trump's supporters, by and large, are disaffected Americans that have never really been engaged by the political process. And so that's how he's able to capitalize on their frustrations, is he's able to say, look, both sides are out to screw you. He's able to sit there and go, the Republicans are no better than the Democrats. and they believe him. And it's because he can point to this Republican intelligentsia, this Republican political class that has all the money. And he can say that they're screwing you just as much as the Democrats are screwing you. And so what you have is a Trump party. You have a Trump movement. These people aren't, it's not even a Republican party anymore. I mean,
No.
in as much as he seized the Republican brand for himself, but it is the Trump party. It's the Trump movement. I mean, the Republican Party that used to be is basically dead. I don't know where to go from here.
You're right. It's so weird because could you imagine, I don't know, George Bush Sr. appearing and talking to Republicans today, and how like he wouldn't recognize anything that was going on here. Like he'd have no fucking clue. And
Reagan would get booed by these people.
I mean, absolutely get booed. Yeah,
Nixon would get booed by none of the old school Republicans would fit into this at all.
They have no chance whatsoever. It is. What did I laugh? I remember making a joke a while ago about how even Republican pundits have decreased. Really, because I mean, I wasn't around for William F. Buckley or anything. I wasn't around for that, but I mean, William F. Buckley was a vile racist and a bigot and a conservative, ideologue. But the man at least knew what he was talking about. Like his bigotry actually had a consistency to it and like an ideological framework. You can't say that about Republicans. And now they have Charlie Kirk, and shit. Like the downgrade is just seen in all levels. But you mentioned something that's a great point about Trump, is that Trump's biggest asset was the fact that he galvanized a lot of people who never cared about politics in the first place. People who never voted. And they're like, and a lot of that had to do with he was a celebrity. Oh, it's the TV man. Look, I'll go vote for him, And so Marjorie Taylor Greene's one of these people. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
100%. If you talk to Marjorie Taylor Greene in 2012, she probably, and some of these people were Obama people, like Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake was an Obama supporter back in the day. It's like the radical change that happened. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene's an idiot anyway, but if a lot of these people were not activated until Trump in about 2015, 2016.
That has been so weird to me that like it had to be like there like a lot of people who voted for Obama voted for Trump. Like mathematically, that had to have happened. Like it had to have happened. And so you can check the stats on states and you can find like 10-15% swings between Obama and Trump. And I was like, well, and so now that we're talking about this, Obama shared in a few qualities of Trump and how he was like more than a politician. He was like a cultural figure, and that like kind of like Trump is too. And I guess there's just a certain block of the population that's like, hey, here's a popular person. I'm going to just follow what he says. And they don't have a problem with it. I remember listening to a radio interview a long time ago. And it was this older couple they were interviewing. And they asked them, it's like, so can you tell us about, they were at a Trump rally. And it's like, so how have you been politically over the years? It's like, well, I voted for Bush in 2000, and I voted for Bush in 2004. I voted for Obama in 2008. I voted for Obama in 2012. And this year I'm voting for Trump. And I was like, how? What universe are you living in where you can just flip like that? I mean, I can see that happening once. The rest of your life, I was wrong. But you don't give a shit about politics at all. You're just following cultural icons or something, which I don't understand. And Trump, you mentioned about Trump. So about Trump and him latching on these folks that don't have any political ideology. And a great example of this is, I don't know if you saw it when Trump went to that libertarian rally the other day. Yeah. That was so great. I loved every second of that because it kind of showed what happened when Donald Trump or Trump, like the Trump phenomenon, goes up against people to say what you want about them, like goes up against people who actually have an ideology, which libertarians do, as fucked up as it is. They actually have something. Donald Trump was nothing for them, like nothing for them at all, and they booed him off the stage. And it did get to show that, and I did love it. Also showed another reason that, look, people hate to admit this, but Donald Trump is funny. I will go to my grave. People libs hate to say it, but Donald Trump has incredible comedic timing. He's quick on his feet. He reads a room. And when he was getting booed on the stage, libertarians, he goes, "What do you say?" He's like, "All right, keep booing me. Just get your 3% every 4 years, like you
Yeah,
always
yeah.
do." That was great. That's how you handle people who shit talk you. A normal politician would be like, "All right, guys, all right." That was fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's the best part, or that's a sad indictment on the nation, whatever, that we apparently do like following people who just gain a ton of popularity for no reason.
I think, yeah, I think, what's weird about the 2016 election was that you had people, and this may be like horseshoe theory, that the right and the left are similar, but I think it's just more back to the conspiracy theories. It's more just the sort of anti-establishment people that just think that they just want to burn it all down. But you had a lot of people who were saying that they would either vote for Bernie or Trump. They're just so anti-establishment. They just wanted somebody. They wanted anybody but Hillary Clinton, basically. And I think you had a lot of that in 08 with Obama. Is you had a lot of Obama pulled in a significant chunk of that anti-establishment because he was running against Hillary. He was an out of nowhere candidate in 08. I think people forget just like how Barack Obama had no business doing as well as he did
Right.
in that 08 election, because that was Hillary's like christening. That was her election. There was no doubt, like the Democratic establishment had absolutely no one else on their radar. Hillary Clinton was going to be the nominee in 08. And then out of nowhere comes Barack Obama and just fucking sweeps the whole party with him. And I think you had a lot of people in 08 that supported that because he was kind of out of nowhere. He was a change candidate. He ran a change campaign. I think by 2012, a lot of people felt that Obama had become part of the establishment. But yeah, it's weird. In 16, you had these people that were like Bernie or Trump. And when Bernie dropped out, it was Trump. But they just, they're these people that are just so like anti-establishment, anti-government, anti-politician, that they just wanted, they wanted anybody who they felt would basically burn the system down or change the system. How they get that Trump is
Right.
as a billionaire, how Trump is out to serve anybody but himself in the billionaire class. I don't know how they make that leap, but yeah, I think that's where a lot of it.
So that gets to what I was saying, like, in what way can we communicate with people like this? Because we all make the mistake, and I'm trying to work my way around it, but it's very difficult to do, in that everyone doesn't think the way you do. Everyone does not think the way you do, and what convinces you, like obvious or whatever, isn't necessarily going to convince other people. It's not. And so you got to find other ways around this. And so what bothers me is that, I mean, I'm human. I fail at this sometimes, but I try my best to state my positions on reality and on data and seeing what are the consequences of the policies I support, seeing if anyone's tried it before, seeing if it's mathematically plausible. This is very important to me. And it's not to everyone. Apparently, that's not the case. It's like, no, this doesn't feel right. I'm just gonna ride with this. How do we get through to individuals like this? Because our way doesn't necessarily work all the time.
I don't think you can. I mean, I think it depends on the person.
I don't either.
Yeah. I mean, you can, to the soft Trump voter, you can. To the person who doesn't like Biden, hates the Democrats, actually believes the shit that comes out of Trump's mouth. You could maybe, there's a certain percentage of them where, because all of their, the thing with the Trump movement and with the Republican Party as a consequence is every one of their arguments, and this from being on TikTok, every single one of their arguments is based on a falsehood. They don't necessarily have a single argument that's based in any kind of objective reality. It's based in this alternative reality that they've created for themselves. And all of their arguments stem from that. So I don't know how you argue with somebody who doesn't even agree. Like, how do you argue the economy with somebody who's not even on the same page with you about how the economy is doing? like, you can't argue with these. You can't argue facts and figures with these people. It's all just emotion. So I don't know how you argue emotion. But I do think that there's a certain percentage of these people where if you just show them the facts, if you just say, like, look, what you just said is not accurate. Here's what's accurate. There is a certain percentage of people that will be affected by that. I've seen it. I've done it. I have people in my family that technique is worked on. People are just so hungry for facts and truth, and they're just sick of bullshit, that if you just talk facts to them, there is a certain percentage of people that will win over. Now, I don't know if it'll win them over enough to not vote for Trump. But then there is the hardcore element where, I mean, I don't know that you could say, I don't know that you could say anything. They're the people that believe that, like, Joe Biden is a pedophile and all this stuff, like this QAnon.
And Trump is not somehow. Right. Trump definitely isn't. Yeah, that's this is where I go with this here. This is something you point out, that the arguments that they use, like, geez, like, you're right. A lot of these folks, and I say this all the time, that I don't spend a lot of my time, or hardly any, working on persuasion, because it's not going to happen. Like, not and if you do persuade someone, it could take years before you change someone's mind. Like, I don't have that kind of time. And so I always say focus more on mobilization than persuasion. Focus on people who already kind of agree with you, and move on from there. I didn't recognize Sarah John from Brazil. I don't know any Portuguese, so I'm glad you spoke English right there. Some people don't have any plans at all. Yeah, it's like Troy said, they just want to watch the world burn. They're the Joker over here. But what you were talking about with how a lot of these folks just have a ridiculous talking point that is nowhere near the truth. And this is something I've noticed with right-wing propaganda versus left-wing propaganda, because left-wing propaganda is usually true. It's usually 100% accurate. Right-wing propaganda could be fucking anything. An example of this is when they say, well, the Democrats want to make it legal for a woman to go into labor with a perfectly healthy baby, and then take the baby out, execute it right there. Yeah. It's like, no, that's nowhere near true. But that's like, it's nonsense. It's complete bullshit. However, our propaganda is, there's people out there that want to ban all abortion for no reason. You can find plenty of people who will say that. You can find people who will want to ban contraception, people who want to ban in vitro fertilization. Like, that's the extreme for us, and it's 100% true. Now, I don't think that's most Republicans. I wouldn't say most Republicans would say that, but enough do. And you can't find any people on the left who will say, perfectly healthy baby, put an axe through its skull. I don't care. It's not going to happen. And the priorities too, because you said you can't change people's mind, because a lot of it is based on, like, our moral positions, or our political positions are essentially based on moral axioms. And this is weird, like, all of your morality, like all human morality, is irrational when you get right down to it, because why is it is it's like, well, why is murder illegal? Well, because I don't want people to die. Okay, why don't you want people to die? Well, a society where everyone gets killed would be destabilized. What's so great about human society? What's so great about human life? Like, you just keep going, and eventually gets to, well, I just don't want it. And so that's what. But so when it comes to, like, an example I use, this is universal health care. So it just happens to be that universal health care is more cost efficient, and it's more effective, and we've seen this dozens of times all around the world. And you try to argue this with Republicans, and they're still against it. They're like, no, I still don't want it. I still don't want it. And I kind of get it too, because let's say the situation was flipped. Let's say that universal health care actually cost more. I would still be for it. I'd still be for it. I don't give a fuck. It's like, that's the moral decision to make. And because we like the post office doesn't make any money. The military doesn't make, well, not for us, doesn't make any money. Fire stations don't make any money. But this is a part that we need to pay, or this is a part of society that needs to exist for us to survive. So I wouldn't care if universal healthcare actually costs us more money. Fortunately, it doesn't. But but as far as the axiomatic goes, I'm gonna roll with what I feel is right. And that's where we lose a lot of them, is that a lot of people do have opinions that are just horrific. Like they're just operating on this performative sociopathy. Like they really, really want to cause as much harm. Well, it's not they want to cause. They don't care about the harm it causes to people, and that's the folks that you just gotta leave them alone. Honestly,
I think that yeah, I think there's it's different brain chemistry. I think it's a uniquely American problem. I think even in the right wing in other countries is still basing their ideology on some level of fact-based rational thinking. I don't think the American right. I think the American right has lost the ability to think rationally. I think their entire motivation is just fear and emotion. They're terrified of everything. They think everybody's out to get them. And they do this. They've done studies on this where the more on the scale, the more left you go, the more you believe in the goodness of humanity, and that probably has to do with a more healthy upbringing, or you just generally believe that good things happen. And the further right you go, you don't trust people. You think everybody's out to get you. You think everybody has an agenda. You tend to isolate more, and they've found a political movement that speaks to that fear, that fear of everybody, fear of everything, and that's why it's so easy to win these people over, because you don't even really have to have a plan to solve problems. All you have to say is, "I know why you're afraid, and I can make the bad stuff go away." And that's what Trump does. That's what all dictators throughout history have done. Is Trump doesn't have a fucking plan. Like,
he doesn't.
Like his fucking 5-point plan to save Social Security.
No, he'll have it in 2 weeks. He'll have it ready in 2 weeks.
He'll have it in 2 weeks. He said that the other day about something too, about the contraception. He said that about the contraception.
Yes,
stuff. He's like, I have a contraception plan. It'll be out in a week.
He said, I think you'll find it's very smart.
Yeah.
I love that he sounds like Donald Trump. He talks like a 6-year-old and acts like a 6-year-old, and not even a well-behaved one. Like if you had a 6-year-old child that acted the way Donald Trump did, you wouldn't stop admonishing that child. Like, no, that is not how you behave in society.
They don't. This is why none of their shit makes any sense, because they just jump from one thing to be afraid of to the next. Like, okay, it used to be, okay, we're all afraid of CRT now because all the white parents are afraid that we're teaching their white kids to hate themselves. That's not happening. That's not true.
I know, right?
We're afraid of trans people because we think that trans people are grooming kids to be trans or to chop their genitals off or whatever. Again, that's not happening. They invent things to be afraid of, and that's what keeps them going. That's what keeps them going.
Yeah, the thing with the brains, I think I know the study you're talking about. I remember, or it might be a different one. Who knows? There's probably several studies on this, but a study found that people with conservative beliefs tended to have a larger amygdala in their brain than those who didn't. And for those of you who don't know, the amygdala is the fear center in your brain. Yeah, it's like your fight or flight center, and so you're afraid of more things. Like you're literally like stacking up whether the fears are rational or not, you're still stacking up a ton of fear. And so someone can come along and exploit that fear, like Trump says, like the Mexicans are coming to steal your job, the Marxist professors are tricking your kids into hating white people and stuff. And like any nonsense they can think of, they can scare you into the belief. And also conservatives have a much higher rate of disgust, it turns out. That I think they showed people a picture of like a severed hand or something, and they gauged like how viscerally their brain reacted to it. And conservatives thought it was grosser than liberals did. Yeah, it's just weird like that. So, but it does kind of make sense. Like I don't know if you remember like Piss Christ back in the day, and how conservatives were like, that was 1,000 years ago, but they were just losing their shit at this art exhibit or something because they were so outraged by this. And the fear thing you talk about, this is something I mentioned too, is that like 9/11, it's always a big red flag when someone says that, oh, I wish things could go back the way they were September 12th. Huge red flag when someone says that, because because like we were all united. Yeah, we were united in bloodlust and rage and fear. And it's like, that's not a country we need.
And racism.
Racism, yes.
We were united in our hatred of brown people from the Middle East. Like that's not
racism against the wrong people a lot of times. It's like not even against the ones that they were wanting to go after, like Sikhs from India or whatever were being like threatened and everything. But it like when you are afraid, you become more conservative. Like it happens like to everybody. Like if the house is burning down, I don't give a fuck what your gender is. Like I don't care. Like I don't care what your pronouns are. We need to get the fuck out of here. And conservatives live in that mindset every single day, and you can tell by the way they act. The amygdala thing is interesting. I don't know where I read that, but the only dangerous minority. Oh yeah, I do mention that a lot. That whenever conservatives talk about how we need the Electoral College to protect against the tyranny of the minority. I always bring out that James Madison wrote the tyranny of tyranny of the majority.
Yeah.
When James Madison wrote that we need to fear the tyranny of the majority, he wrote it as the tyranny of the majority against the minority of the opulent. Like he came right out and said, "This is to protect the rich. This is what I'm doing this for, just so you guys know." And the only minority that's ever been protected in the United States consistently is the rich. It's true. It happens all the time. So I don't know. That's God. I don't know what to do, man. I like talking to other content creators with this stuff because you're right. I don't put a whole lot of stock into trying to change people's minds, but it is very cathartic in getting out and being able to talk about this stuff to as many people as we can.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, I think you put it well. I think we've moved past persuasion. We need to need mobilization. We need to find people and get them out and vote. We need as many people to vote as possible because, like I was saying earlier in the show, like we're not even talking about policy right now. We're talking about survival.
I know.
We got to get through this. We got to get through this Trump era. Eventually, Trump is gonna die. So,
what do you think happens to the Republicans after he dies? Like, where? Because I really don't know. I genuinely could see it going a dozen different directions, and I don't know which one I'd bet on. I'm not sure.
My wife is convinced that somebody will just take up the mantle and become the new Trump. I don't think so. I think it is very much like a cult of personality.
Mm-hmm.
You have very Trumpy people that don't command the love that Trump does.
Yep.
I think it scatters. I think when Trump's gone, the movement just scatters through the wind. There'll always be that movement, but then they become like the libertarians. They just kind of become leaderless and, just kind of whatever. I don't know, but I think it kind of depends on what I'm super curious about is if these Republicans that have become Democrats because of Trump, if they go back to being Republicans after. And you lose that sort of new Democratic coalition of the never Trumper. And I think if they do, then that kind of becomes the new Republican Party is just I hope that happens because I hope that they go back to being Republicans and we have a functional two-party system in this country. Or, they form a new party and we actually get to a multi-party system in this country. But I don't think that the Trump MAGA movement necessarily continues without Trump. I think it's 100% a cult of personality.
Yeah, I think it falls apart too. I think the best case scenario, which is still pretty bad, is what you mentioned, is that they return back to somewhat of a version of what they were, before, because I think that's what Nikki Haley's plan is. Like Nikki Haley's plan is to stick around and like that. Why she endorsed Trump? She knows that Trump will either lose or die. That's going to happen. And she'll still be around. And so she's like, I'd like to run for president again in 4 or 8 years. And I don't want all the Trump people to hate me. I remember she came out and endorsed him. So like the same bullshit Republican Party with a kinder face is, I think, what they're trying to go for there. But, it's something. It's better than what we have now. So, yeah. Oh, also, I think more of us should run for office of some sort. I think the regular people, because I got to tell you, I worked here. After I got in the Army, I got a job working as an intern, as a legislative intern in the Community Action Association and Poverty Institute. And I got to sit around like the Indiana General Assembly. I knew politicians weren't impressive, but holy shit, they're like, my God, I didn't know it was this dire. So yeah, I think, and this is where last thing I'll say, this is where I give credit to Republicans or conservatives in general, is they put in the fucking work. They did.
Yeah.
After the civil rights movement and after like women's liberation and everything, after Roe v. Wade, they started in the 70s staffing people in city councils, on school boards, mayoral races, and just working their way up. And it finally paid off. It finally paid off that, like we said, like the Republican Party of the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, gone. The inmates have officially started running the asylum, which the Republicans didn't expect. They didn't expect that to happen, but they ended up. So I think we can do it. Like, we're not super happy with the Democratic Party. I think we work now. We can take over it 40 years from now. I mean, I think it could actually happen.
You're 100%. Like, talk about the long view. I think that Trump in a lot of ways is the symptom, not the cause. Because these people have been working on this shit.
Yes.
You're right. For 50 years, they've been working on this. And the reality that we're living in now is the reality that they were working on in the 70s. They got together in the 70s and they went, this is what we want to do. We want to do X, Y, Z. And it's just now coming to fruition. That's how intense these people are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think more people need to run for office. More good people need to run for office. Let's stop making politics a dirty word. Like, I've run for office. I ran for a school board. Just get out there and do it. It's not that, it's not as hard as you think it would be, because we need good people. It's better to be good in politics than to be smart. I'll tell you that right now. We just need good people to run. We really do.
What do you think of this plan? I'm only half joking when I say this, is that what if we just ran as Republicans? Because think about how easy it would be to run as a Republican. Like, you don't got to do research. You don't got to convene with experts. Yeah. You don't got to know what you're talking about. All you have to do is say something like, Satan is real and he's coming after your kids. Vote for me and I'll stop him. But 80% of the Republican vote. You got it. Like, that's all it would take. So, just bullshit around with it. Then you get in there and do whatever you want. People aren't paying attention. I don't know. I'm half joking about that, but I'm sure it would. I think if we all ran as Republicans and just on Riz alone, we could win like a quarter of the elections. So I don't know. It's not an official endorsement, but just something to roll around, folks.
We just take control of Congress, just this massive wave. And then on day one, we all just go, psych.
Psych. So it's good stuff. All right, cool. Troy, thanks so much for joining us, man. I really appreciate you making time during your holiday and everything. Can you tell the good folks where they can find your content?
Yeah, so TikTok, Instagram, my handle is @KeepTroyBlue. I write for Midas Touch. If you want to go to MidasTouch.com.
Oh, shit, that's cool.
You can see some of my stuff there. Yeah, that's pretty much that's it. TikTok and Instagram, really the big ones. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. Appreciate it, man. I'll catch you later.
All right. Thanks, TJ. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Good talking to you.